Dheeraj, I think the recording has started now. You can continue with the session.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, so as we were discussing, I want to take this course from a foundation level. So if you already know the basics, just slightly ignore. Yeah, so I'll go with the definition of robotics. Normally, robotics is the science of designing or building an application of robots. Simply, robotics may be defined as the study of robots. Okay, what does this mean? Like, suppose you want to make calculations, and suppose easy calculations such as 1 plus 2 or 2 plus 3 would be very easy for humans. But what if you were given a 6-digit calculation or a 10 by 10 digit calculation or a matrix multiplication or a vector scaling or anything other than that? It would be very difficult, right? So for that purpose, we are going to create machines. So basically, it is very fast and it is very accurate. So the first point and the necessity of robotics is covered. And again, you need robots to go in different places and do researches. Like researchers use drones and they use deep submarine bots to actually research those places and find out what's there underneath the ground and over the stratosphere to conduct deep research. And so with providing us great results. And so yeah, they can work in hazardous and dangerous temperatures, and they can do repetitive monotonous tasks, such as suppose you want to sign a paper 1,000 times, then you can just create a robot and the work will be done in some few seconds, and it will be done very perfectly. And yeah, so it can do repetitive tasks. So now, what is a microcontroller? In robotics, there are two types of chips, mainly known as microcontrollers and microprocessors. So I'll be explaining both of them to you. So microcontrollers are special purpose computers that can do one task well. And this means that in the right you have a picture showing a microcontroller. So this microcontroller is designed for a very specific task. Like suppose you have a microcontroller for calculations, then you cannot use that microcontroller for doing farming. And so a microcontroller is very specific. And what is a microprocessor? A microprocessor may be defined as a very large scalable integrated chip that performs a task of the central processing unit of a microcomputer or other automatic control systems. Suppose you have a personal computer, then the chip which is then the whole motherboard which is present is a microprocessor, to which different units such as memory and other units such as external devices and all are connected. So I'll be explaining you the differences between a microprocessor and a microcontroller. In the diagram, you can see microprocessor and microcontroller. And the main differences you can observe are a microcontroller has RAM and ROM inside it, whereas a microprocessor doesn't have them. The main difference here is that in a microcontroller, everything is limited. It is you cannot update them, or you cannot reduce the RAM, or you cannot increase the other functions. It is very limited, and while as in a microprocessor, you can adjust it according to your needs. You want some 12 gigabytes of memory, then you can use a 12 gigabyte memory. You want to use lesser, you can decrease the memory and you can attach it to the microprocessor. It is just like a heart of a computer, but a controller is the computer itself. So to go into details between microprocessor and a microcontroller, in a microprocessor, the CPU is standalone. RAM, ROM, input, output timers are separate, as in this picture. In a microcontroller, the CPU, RAM, ROM, input, output, and timer are all on a single chip, as shown in this picture. So everything is present in the microcontroller, so you cannot modify it. And yeah, in a microprocessor, designer can design the amount of RAM, ROM, and input output ports. And in a microcontroller, it is a fixed amount. And microprocessors are generally expensive because uh, they are very versatile, and a microcontrollers are less in cost because they have very limited features, and normally it is very easy to buy ready-made things other than getting things done by your hand, right? So the same goes with the chips as well. And yeah, as I've told, microprocessor is very versatile, and but a microcontroller is for applications in which cost and power and space are critical, and they are single purpose chips. So a microprocessor is a general purpose chip, and a microprocessor is high processing power because it uses buses power to contact with the other parts. But whereas in a microcontroller, it consumes low power as everything is there on the same chip. And coming to a microprocessor, the instruction set focus on processing intensive operations, and the microcontroller focuses on bit level operations. We'll be discussing about them later in detail. So a microprocessor is generally 32 to 64 bit, but a microcontroller is typically 8 to 16 bit. And a microprocessor typically it has deep pipeline, which is 5 to 20 stages. But a microcontroller has a single cycle or two cycles pipeline. We'll be talking about these pipeline concepts as well in the future. I want to get you clarified between baud rate and bit rate. A bit is a unit of information. As a computer understands digital language, a bit is a numerical 0 or a numerical 1, and a baud is a unit of signaling speed. The bit rate, designated as B, is the number of bits transmitted per second, whereas a baud rate, designated S, is the number of symbols transmitted per second. And you can see here the relation between bit rate and baud rate. So bit rate equal to baud rate into number of bits per symbol. You can see an example here. Suppose let's take an analog and digital signals. And going into these, I'd like to say there are two types of signals, and as you can see, there are analog and digital. But the main difference between these is a digital signal is what the computer understands. It is basically zeros and ones, as you can see a step graph between the signal and the time. It can only show a 0 or a 1 at a particular time, not in between. So either you can have 0 or 1, but you cannot have a 0.3 or you cannot have a 0.75, etc. But in an analog graph, you can see it is curved. And the best examples for digital and analog signals are in a digital signal, you get a button or a knob in which they give 0 or 1 to the microcontroller. But in an analog signal, the best example would be an ultrasonic sensor, which would give the distance between the object and the sensor. And coming to PWM, pulse width modulation. So it is a technique that generates variable width signal generally based on modulate signal information. So yeah, the pulse width modulation is an entirely different concept which is linked here because we'll be talking about analog signals in detail. So generally, in a microcontroller, the analog pin, there are analog and digital signals, but in reality, both are the same. Both are digital signals. And how does the computer differentiate between these? Is it does not. Both are digital signals for the computer as well. So to depict these digital signals as analog signals for input as well as output, the computer arranges a duty cycle. So in a duty cycle, suppose there are two pulses for a duty cycle, the graph becomes smoother, right? And if there are four pulses per a duty cycle, the graph becomes even smoother. So getting the graph smoother and smoother, it generates almost a graph that is equivalent to an analog graph. So the definition of a pulse width modulation. It is the way of controlling a digital signal simulating an analog signal. I want you to note that it is a digital signal which simulates an analog signal, but it is not an analog signal entirely. And the on off behavior changes the average power of the signal, and output signal alternates between on and off within the specified period. The specified period here is the duty cycle. And pulse width modulation is used in variety of applications such as an analog to DC converters, DC motors, telecommunications, voltage regulation, remote control devices, audio video effects, power delivery amplification, and many like that. And this is the Arduino board, and I'll be taking some time explaining the Arduino board, so please listen carefully. This would be very useful to you. Yeah, this black thing which I'm showing you is the power connector. It is connected with a DC power voltage of generally 5 to 6 volts. And these two, as you can see, are capacitors. And the small black strip you can see here, it is a diode. And this black rectangle you can see, it is a USB interface, input output, which is connected to the computer, through which the board is connected to the computer. And this board generally has two microcontrollers inside it. The Arduino board is just a board, but it has two microcontrollers inside it. So the main microcontroller would be this long black rectangle. It is an Atmega 328 microcontroller, and the small rectangle which my cursor is showing is the Atmega 16U2 microcontroller. I'll explain you why two microcontrollers are required in this Arduino board as we go through. So the red button which you can see here is the reset button. I'll explain you the purpose of a reset button very soon. The three uh, concurrent cylinders that you can see here are the ICSP for USB interface. The USB input output interface would be controlled by this protocol which is present in these. And these are the pins, and then the TX and RX which you can see here are LEDs. These LEDs depict the transfer, which is TX, and the receiving, which is the RX of the microcontroller. TX represents for the transfer of data, and RX represents for the receiving of data. Yeah. So this one, the top one to which my cursor is pointing is the I2C serial clock pin, and this is the I2C serial data pin, which is just side by it. And this is AREF, and this is ground. Uh, Ground is basically used for completion of a circuit. I hope you already know that. And these are all the pins. The pins which have a negation symbol in front of them are PWM enabled pins. As we have already discussed, a PWM enabled pin can output or input analog signals as well by simulating them. And the last pin which you can see here is the pin 0, written RX beside it. It can also be used as an RX pin or a receiving of data pin. And this pin which I'm showing you is the pin 1, which is TX, which can be used for the transfer of data as well. And the pin just beside it to its left is an interrupt 2 pin. And the pin beside this is an interrupt 1 pin. Yeah, please switch off your video, everybody. So everybody would be able to see my screen on their laptops. Yeah, these are all the digital pins which we can use to enable or transmit and receive digital data. And the pins which you can see here, this long strip is the power pin. Nothing of this can be used to input or output. These pins are the analog pins which you can use for analog signals. I told you these are not analog signals, but they are digital signals simulated in an analog form. So this pin which my cursor is showing is the not connected pin. It is of no use for nobody. And the second pin is the input output reference voltage pin. And the third pin would be the voltage reset pin. And the fourth pin would be a 3.3 volt output pin. And the fifth pin would be a 5 volt output pin. And there are two ground pins, and then there is an input voltage pin. And the pin which I'm showing here, A5, is an I2C protocol compatible SCL pin, and the A4 pin is an I2C protocol compatible SDA pin. Now talking about why we need two microcontrollers on this Arduino board. So this Atmega 328 is the heart of the Arduino, and it performs every calculation and every data that the Arduino transfers or receives. The data is processed in this microcontroller itself. So you might ask me, why do we need another microcontroller inside this Arduino when every data is being processed in it? Yeah. So we've talked about this pin, this USB input output, right? So this USB input output is a Type B input, and this microcontroller Atmega 328 knows every protocol except USB interface protocol. So this Atmega 16U2 here is the connector or the bridge between this Atmega 328 and the USB interface. So Atmega 16U2 is the USB protocol enabled microcontroller which transmits all the data from this bigger Atmega 328 microcontroller to the computer to which it is connected. And so we require two microcontrollers in this. And yeah, the pins at the bottom. These three pins are like the reset pins of a microcontroller or a personal computer. So this pin, the bottommost pin would be a ground pin, which is for the completion of the circuit, and the pin above it would be the input to this pin would be an MOSI, and the input to the pin above it would be a VCC from externally. And these are generally used to reset the factory settings of this microcontroller. These are advanced topics. And the topmost pin, it is not a pin exactly, but you can connect them. So it has a MISO, and then the pin below it, the second pin or the middle pin, it is an SCK. Like to explain this better, I would take the example of a basic input output system BIOS in a PC. When your PC gets corrupt or you want to check the PC's hardware from the software, you generally go to BIOS, right? So this is the same for the Arduino as well. And the third pin would be connected to reset. So yeah, that basically sums up the Arduino part. So I hope everybody is clear with this microcontroller diagram explanation. If you have any doubt, you can ask in the chat box as well as in the WhatsApp group. Yeah, I almost forgot explaining one part. Yeah, so you can see a second part here, right? So this small black chip is used as a comparator. And what does a comparator do? It compares. And it compares the voltages between the input signal from this pin and the input current from this USB interface. And because the Arduino itself cannot decide which current to take in, this comparator would enable one of these two signals to the microcontroller for its purpose and processing. Right. So the Arduino Uno technical specifications, and it is a microcontroller. Obviously, the Atmega 328P is the main microcontroller used in it, and the operating voltage is 5 volts, and the recommended input voltage is 7 to 12 volts, and the input voltage limits are 6 to 20 volts. The analog input pins are at showed you, those are from A0 to A5, and the digital input pins are 14, out of which 6 provide PWM output, and the DC current on the input output pins are 40 milliamperes, and the DC current on 3.3 volt pin, which I've showed you here. This is the 3.3 volt pin, and excuse me, this is the 5 volt pin. The DC current on the 3.3 volt pin is 50 milliampere, and the flash memory is the memory of the microcontroller, and it is 32 KB, and it is used for bootloader. It is in this flash memory that your program gets stored, and the static RAM of this microcontroller would be a 2 kilobyte memory, and the EEPROM of this microcontroller would be a single kilobyte, and the frequency or the clock speed of this microcontroller would be 16 megahertz, which means it can do 1 by 16 into 10 power 6 operations, micro operations per second. So you can understand the speed of this microcontroller. It is not very high, but though it is very fast. Yeah, this is the schematic diagram of an Arduino Uno Rev 3 Revolution 3 microcontroller, and the pins are actually quite messed up, but they're still the same in their functionality. This is the 3.3 volt pin, and this is the 5 volt pin, and this is the V input to which you give your power signal. And the reset and the reset 2 and the AREF and the input output reference are gathered together at one side, and the analog pins are gathered together at a separate space to the left side, to which, as I've explained, A4 and A5 has SDA and SCL functional capabilities as well. The not connected pin is given to the left ground signal as well, and the digital pins starting from D0 to D13, which are 14 pins in total, are given to the right side. And yeah, D0 has an RX functionality, and TX has D1 has a TX functionality as well, as I told you. And out of this 14 pins, digital pins, you have 6 which are PWM enabled, which are D3, D5, D6, D9, D10, and D11 respectively. And along with a PWM functionality, the D10 pin has an SS functionality. And yeah, I don't want to confuse you guys, so I'll just go to the next slide and I'll explain you it later. And this is the general pin description. So yeah, it gives a brief description about which pins are used for what purpose. The power pins, which are V in 3.3 volt, 5 volts, and ground, which are basically separated here to the top of this microcontroller schematic view. Their purpose is that Vin is an input voltage to Arduino when using an external power source. When you don't want to use the current from your laptop or your personal computer, you use an external current source. Or when your robot or your microcontroller has to be used when not connected to a computer, then you use an external power source. You have connectors, many connectors from batteries to microcontrollers. You can buy them outside, and then your robots will be you know um, enabled power without any connection to the computer. And the 5 volts pin, it is a regulated power supply used to power microcontroller and other components on the board. And the 3.3 volt is supply generated by on-board voltage regulator. The maximum current draw is 50 milliamperes, as we have discussed earlier. And the ground pins. So the ground pins are basically, as I've told you, they are used to complete the circuit, and the reset pins are used to reset. The reset button is used to reset the microcontroller. If you're wondering what is the reset button, this button, as I'll explain you later. This red button here is used to reset the microcontroller, which means it will erase the program which you have uploaded on your microcontroller, and it will await for the further instructions and a further sketch to be uploaded into the microcontroller. And the analog pins A0 to A5, they are used to provide analog input in the range of 0 to 5 volts. And the input output pins, the digital pins, which are 0 to 13, there are 14 pins, can be used as input as well as output pins, and they can also be used as PWM pins. Yeah, so the serial communication pins, which are pin D0 and D1, which are used as RX and TX respectively, they are used to receive and transmit transistor transfer logic serial data, TTL serial data. So external inputs are pins 2 and 3 to trigger an interrupt. Sorry, they are interrupts. You know, an interrupt is something which you use when you want your microcontroller or your processor to stop the existing process and come to another process which is of an urgent need, complete it, and then come back to your original process. So yeah, the best example would be an ongoing class. Suppose you're in a class and then you're being taught by someone, and then an urgent message has to be passed. Like so, someone comes through the door, knocks the door, and then acknowledges the teacher acknowledges the person, and the person delivers the message, and the person leaves after delivering the message. So the same goes with the process of an interrupt. An interrupt comes, and the computer or the microprocessor acknowledges the interrupt, and the interrupt get acknowledged, and it works get processed by the microcontroller by pausing its own original process, and then the after the interrupt is finished, the interrupt gives a finished signal, and then the microprocessor or the microcontroller continues with its original data. And the PWM pins, as I've told you, are digital 3, digital 5, digital 6, digital 9, and digital 11 pins. They provide 8-bit PWM output. And the SPI pins are used for SPI communications. They are digital 10, 11, 12, and 13. The inbuilt LED 13 is a special inbuilt LED which is used to test data. Normally, you require flags in a computer to check your program. Like if you ever done competitive programming, you know that flags are very important to check step-by-step processing of your data. So the Arduino microcontroller has an inbuilt LED, which is the pin 13, which you can use freely to flag your data. And the analog 4 and analog 5 are used for TWI communication. And the ARAF pin, which is present here, which is present at the top left side, just beside the ground signal where my cursor is pointing. So it is used to provide reference voltage for input voltage. Yeah. So basically, how to use an Arduino board. The 14 digital input output pins can be used as input or output pins by using pin mode, digital read, digital write functions in Arduino programming. Don't worry, I'm going to explain you everything about these functions in detail in the next coming slides. So each pin operates at 5 volts and can provide or receive a maximum of 40 milliamperes of current, and has an internal pulled up resistor of 20 to 50 kilo ohms, which are disconnected by default. Out of these 14 pins, some pins have specific functions as listed below. So we've talked about RX, TX, and then we've talked about SPI interfaces, and then we've talked about PWM and interrupts. So the given again, the serial pins 0, RX, and 1 TX, and the interrupt pins are 2 and 3. They are used to trigger an interrupt on a low value. So yeah, these interrupts are a falling edge triggered interrupts, which means in a step graph, when the pulse goes down, the interrupts are triggered. Normally, when you give a pulse, the signal gets triggered, right? So, but an interrupt gets triggered in its negation value. So when the pulse goes down, the interrupt gets triggered. And the PWM pins, the PWM pins are pins 3, 5, 6, 9, 11. They are used to provide an 8-bit PWM output, which is an analog simulated digital output, as I've explained you very clearly. And the SPI pins are used for SPI communication. The LED pin is 13. So this pin 13 is connected with a built-in LED. When pin 13 is high, LED is on, and when pin 13 is low, it's off. So you can use pin 13 freely for other purposes as well. But when you're using pin 13 as high, the LED automatically gets high, and so there's nothing about you can do it about. And yeah, analog along with the 14 digital pins, there are 6 analog input pins, each of which provide 10 bits of resolution. That is total of 1024 different values. They're analog values, right? So if each bit has if each pin has 8 bits, and according to the bit representation, it goes till 2 power, right? So it goes till 2 power 8 into 2 power 8. So that is around 255. So 0 to 255 are the values which the analog pins can output or input. So the digital pins can only take a 0 or a 1, but an analog pin can take a 256 value input or an output. So yeah, analog pin 4 SDA and analog pin 5 SCA are used for PWI communication using wire library. This will be taught in detail in future classes, don't worry. And the Arduino Uno has a couple of other pins as explained below. So the AREF, which I've explained to you, it is used to provide reference voltage for analog inputs with analog reference function. This function is used to actually compare the voltages, and the reset pin, while making this pin low, resets the microcontroller. Yeah, do note this point that the reset pin is also a falling edge triggered pin, which means when the pulse gets low, the, the pin's value and the pin's functionality gets high, so its functionality gets processed. And when the pulse gets low, the microcontroller is reset, which means the program in it is erased. And yeah, different communications with the Arduino board. Uh, so Arduino board can be used to communicate with a computer, another Arduino board, or other microcontrollers. The Atmega 328P microcontroller provides UART TTL serial communication, which can be done using digital pin 0, which is receive, and digital pin 1, which is the transfer. An Atmega 16U2 on the board channels this serial communication over USB and appears as a virtual COM port to software on the computer. So I've explained you the special purpose of this Atmega 16U2 microcontroller before. So it is given here again. This channels this serial communication over USB and appears as a virtual COM port to software on the computer. The Atmega 16U2 firmware uses the standard USB COM drivers and no external driver is needed. Yeah, so the Atmega 16U2, it has all the drivers pre-installed and all the protocols which are required for the microcontroller to communicate with the computer via the USB channel. So yeah, when saving the Arduino files in Windows, as a text document would have a .txt extension, and a C program would have a .c extension. An Arduino program has a .inf extension. So if you are using any text editors such as Sublime Text or a normal text editor, and you want to save this as an Arduino program to be run on your microcontroller, you need to save it with a .inf instruction or an extension. Sorry. So the two RX and TX bulbs on the Arduino board, which will flash when data is being transmitted via the USB to serial chip and USB connection to the computer. Yeah, so when data is being transferred or received to the microcontroller, so these pins, the TX and the RX pins, which are digital 0 and the digital 1s, and their LEDs, which I've shown you here, the TX LED over here and the RX LED over here, would actually flash, letting you know that there is a transfer of data occurring between the microcontroller and the computer which you have connected. So you know when a transfer is being done. So yeah, coming to the predefined functions which you need to know to program a microcontroller. So the first one would be the setup. Normally, the two functions which are setup and loop, they are used in every sketch. In Arduino or in an Arduino IDE, every program you write is called a sketch. So in a sketch, the two functions setup and loop are necessary. So yeah, this setup function comes before the loop function and is necessary for all Arduino sketches, which means when the program is loaded into the microcontroller, the instructions that to be followed immediately after the program has been loaded into the microcontroller are being programmed in the setup um, blank. So the setup blank is actually the immediate program that runs after the program is booted into the microcontroller. And the loop, as you have seen here, this is a normal void sketch. This does nothing. It is just to show you. So the setup, it runs once. It is run immediately after the program is loaded into the microcontroller. And the loop function, which is just immediately after the setup function, it will run over and over, which means so you know about the setup and loop. If you have any confusion in the practicals, then you will go to the practicals. So I'll leave it there. And the digital read function. So it reads the value from a specific digital pin, either high or low. So high or low in a digital language is a numerical 1 for a high and a numerical 0 for a low. And so the pin is used. Digital pins are 14 pins, which are D0 to D13. So this function which is there here, digital read, it can be used to read the value from a specific digital pin. So the syntax would be digital read of the pin number which you want to use. So while mentioning a pin, you need not use while mentioning a digital pin, you need not use any alphabets. So you can just use pins 0 to 13 numerically. And yeah, you'll get to know this clearly when you're doing a practical. So, and yeah, excuse me for a sec. Yeah, thank you and sorry. And so the digital read function, yeah, we've talked about the digital read function. So the next comes is the digital write function. So, when you want to give or take a data, you need two functions, right? So the digital read function is generally the take function, and its opposite, the write function, which is the give function, is the digital write function. It is used to write a high or a low value to a digital pin. So if the pin has been configured as an output with pin mode, its voltage would be set corresponding value 5 volts or 3.3 volts or 0 volts for ground for low. Yeah, so the pin mode function, I'll discuss the pin mode function first so you'll have a better understanding. So the pin mode function is it is actually a function which is used to specify the behavior of a pin as an input or an output. The keywords input or an output, all in capital letters, are specifically registered keywords for the Arduino IDE to specify whether a pin is used for taking a data or receiving data. So it is its syntax would be pin mode, or its syntax would be its syntax is here, right here. So it would be pin mode of pin, that is the pin number which you want to use, and the mode. The mode would be either input or an output in capital letters. Yeah. So the mode would be input, output, or input pull up. So the input pull up would be taught to you later. So yeah, the return value of this pin mode is nothing because it is just used to set the behavior of a pin. And so now coming back to digital write, when you enable the pin mode to a pin as an output, so it is used to transfer data from the microcontroller to the outside world. So if the pin is configured as an input, digital write will enable high or disable low, the internal pull-up or the input pin. It is recommended to set the pin mode to input pull-up to enable the internal pull-up register. It is used in complicated concepts. So if you uh, if you want to set if you want to set a high signal to from the pin to the outside world, you will set the pin mode high, and then you will use a digital write of pin, that specific pin number, and the value as 1. So a high signal would be sent over from the microcontroller from the specific pin to the outside world. And if you want to send the logical 0, which is a low, again you will write this digital write function and the pin number, and then you will write a low in capital letters. You should write a low or a high always in capital letters. Do not forget the capital letters, otherwise they are treated as normal variables and they would be undefined and you'll get a compilation error. So the parameters here you can see the pin is the Arduino pin number and the value should be high or low in capital letters. So yeah, talking about the serial communication. I'll just talk about the boards, only the about the UNO boards serial communication. I left this all for you to see when I share this PPT with you. So it has only two pins. The Arduino Uno, the Arduino Nano, and the Mini have two pins. The digital zero, which is used for receiving, and the digital one, which is used for transfer. And yeah, the pins 0 and 1 are used for communication with the computer. Connecting anything with these pins can interfere with that in communication, including causing failed uploads to the board. So yeah, so you should use these pins at only emergency times when you have no other option left. It is better to use these pins only for transfer or receive or data, because it might occur a crash in the whole system. So you'll have to go into the BIOS of your Arduino and then fix your Arduino to avoid that situation to occur. You can always go to other pins. And yeah, talking about the baud rate, I have already told you what a baud rate is, right? So it is the changes in per second in the signal. So yeah, so you have to call this function called begin with the baud rate. So normally you should write begin the function along with the baud rate. So the baud rate is 9600. It is the most commonly used baud rate for an Arduino board. You can use other baud rates as well. Do have fun exploring and adventuring in various programs in the Arduino board. So these are the other functions which are available. So yeah, you can go through these in the links that I'll be sharing you, and along with the PPTs I'll be sharing with you. And yeah, so all the explanation of the Arduino comes to an end with this. So right, thank you everybody for your patience, and maybe now Mr. Rohit wants to take over some practical and show you the realistic models of how robotics is used. Right. I'll hand over to Harshita. Hello.
Oh, yeah, Dheeraj. I think Mr. Rohit can continue with the session now. Mr. Rohit?
Hello. Yes, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, Rohit.
Okay. So I'll be taking on the practical part now. Okay. Okay, I'm sharing my screen.
Not yet, Rohit.
Okay. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Rohit. Yes.
Okay. So hello everybody. So welcome to the practical session. So it's time to put your skills to the test. I mean, you can explore more in this Tinkercad. So as I've said that day, I already told you to create the account. So I hope all of you are having the Tinkercad account. So it's very easy to create. So this is the dashboard we have after you have created the account. So we have 3D designs which we won't be needing throughout the course. We have circuits, we have code blocks and lessons. So most of the work is circled around this part right here, circuits. So these are some sample circuits which I have tinkered with. So let's see what we have here. So I'm going to show some sample projects. Like these will be very useful for you in the upcoming days. Like we'll be doing two projects. So one project we'll be doing together, and the other project you need to submit to us to claim your internship certificate. Harshita will be dealing with all those details. Okay. So let's see what are the possibilities we have with robotics. Like we can design numerous robotic machines to complete our simple daily tasks. There are many fun stuff you can explore on YouTube as well. So let me show you some projects, like two of the projects which I have decided. Let's look at this. This is a temperature sensor. Let's look at this. Okay, as you can see here, the circuit is already assembled here. So if you are interested, I will leave the link to the sketch in the group. So let's see what this circuit does. I'm not going to explain, I mean, I'm not going to go into the technical part because we are in the basics right now. So I'm going to tell you what this circuit is about. Okay, here we have the Arduino board, and here we have a breadboard which we will be dealing in further classes. And again you have the LCD screen here, and this is a potentiometer. We'll be controlling voltages with this, and this again, okay, and this again is the temperature sensor, which is very important, which plays a key role here. So what is our job here? Like, we want to detect some temperature of a room. So this can be done with the simple circuit. So these connections, don't worry, this may look like a mess or ugly at the moment, but as we proceed further in the course, you'll be able to design this on your own. And these connections, by the way, are very easy. I mean, if you want an LCD screen in your project, this is a standard method of how you connect. You need not connect all the pins. There are some pins which you need to connect. So let's see what this does. So we have code button here. We have start simulation, export, and share. So when we look at the code, we have some big chunk of code here which we won't be dealing with very deeply. So here we have options like blocks plus text, and text. So I suggest you all to select the text option, because blocks and text we won't be using this through the course. So select the text option, and we have the code here which is already written. So let's start the simulation. Or when we start the simulation, you can see here clearly this USB pin is right here, got connected, and the simulation got started. And it says that the temperature in Celsius is 24.71. This is the temperature sensor, which means it detected a temperature of 24.71 in the simulation. We can vary this temperature. See, when you click this temperature sensor, you will get a bar here. You can control the temperature which is given to the temperature sensor. So when I decrease it, as you can clearly see in the screen, you have some negative values because I decrease the temperature going into the temperature sensor. And we increase these values. As you can clearly see, the temperature in the LCD screen is increased. So when we stop it, it gets off. So we can see some of the functions with the Dheeraj told in the earlier session actually. We have void setup here, void loop here, which is already told by Dheeraj. And we have some couple of functions like LCD print, LCD set cursor, and we have LCD. See this function LCD.begin 16,2. 16 means the number of columns we have in the LCD screen. Let's see. So you count all these columns 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. They'll be up to 16. And this 2 means the number of rows. See how many rows we have? 2 rows. So I'm not going to go a bit deep in here because of course we won't be understanding anything without the basics. So I'm just making you to understand the possibilities and the cool stuff which can be done with the Arduino boards and different kinds of sensors. And sensors play a key role, in our daily lives, right? So this is about the temperature sensor of the Arduino board. Let's tinker with another cool project. I'm going to go back again. So this one is really interesting, which I'm about to show you now. These projects should also be encouraging you to develop similar kind of projects at the end of the course. Home intruder system. Yeah. So this right here we have. See, the main purpose of this project is like when thieves enter into our house, like we need an alarm so that we can get alerted by it. So we need some kind of detection system like when enemies and break into our house, or when they try to break some signal, or they give some signal to the sensor, which in turn turns on the buzzer right here. So what's the main purpose of the project is to let us notify with the thieves who get into our house, or any other animals, or any other things which are not like. See, we have the Arduino board here, and everything is assembled for you right here. Like, I'm not going to go in deep again, as I told. Let's see what this does. This again is the potentiometer. This is the LCD, you know it, and these two are new in this thing. This is a buzzer actually, piezo element. It says piezo right here. It's a buzzer actually. It gives off sound. You can hear the sound. I'll show you right now. And this is a PIR sensor. What's a PIR sensor? PIR means passive infrared sensor. So we humans, we emit out heat, right? So what this does is it has some range. So if body which is hot, or which is having a high temperature passes through that range, the sensor goes on, and this buzzer gives out sound so that we can get alert. Let's see what happens with this. Let's start the simulation. It says all clear. Let's see what this means. See, when you click this PIR sensor, you get a green, light green kind of shade right here. This is the range. And this ball right here, or this circle right here, it says that the enemies or the theft or the thief is right in that range. So when we move this to some other point, let's say we move this to here. As you can see, the buzzer goes on, and it goes off immediately, because in the code we only enabled it to run for 3 seconds. If we say, see, it makes the sound again. Now it's out of the range. See, now we don't get any sound because the enemy or the thief is out of range. Now let's move it slowly into the range. Yeah, it makes the sound. It seems cool. Let's have a glimpse at the code actually. I'm stopping the simulation. Yeah, it sounds fun, but let me stop it for now. Okay. You will be seeing some couple get scared by that, because you can do this all by yourself. Not that hard actually. So as you can see here, see, we have the LCD function right here again to print the intruder in the house, and that sound goes off, stays only for 3 seconds, because we gave a delay function of 3 seconds. 3000 in the sense 3000 milliseconds, which in turn is a 3 seconds, and that's it. And all goes same here. And see, we have the boolean function here, and we have the sensor value, and we are reading the sensor value from the this PIR sensor. If it gives 1 means high, as Dheeraj said. If sensor value is 1, then we start the buzzer out or high. So if this is 1, this goes high. So that's the end of the presentation. And from tomorrow we'll be looking into the programming part, which will be more interesting, because we will be continuously with me, and there we'll start the basics. So I'm handing over to Harshita. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, Rohit. Thank you so much. Guys, I think this has been a peaceful session without much complexity in understanding. As this is the basics and all, you'll be equipped with much more knowledge from the upcoming sessions also. So, thank you, Dheeraj and Rohit. I hope everybody is clear. I think it's time to provide the attendance form. Please give me a minute.